Welcome back, team. So here we will see one real-time project. Okay, how exactly we can make the deployments in the real time, especially when it comes to the Azure Devops. Okay, we will see that one. Okay, so I'm just starting with the project discussion. Okay, project one. I'm just keeping here project one. So okay, all right, team. So here I'm just trying to draw an architecture. You guys can follow me. Okay. Firstly, team. So as usual, we know that, right? Always we'll try to differentiate between the Azure portal and Azure DevOps, right? That's a common thing we'll always follow, right? That's a common thing we always follow. I'm just keeping the same thing here also. Just go there and just keep a separator here. That's awesome. Now, you know, and you have a little bit idea how exactly the DevOps part work. The bottom part, okay? I gave an idea in our first initial classes itself. So basically, if you recall that particular thing, team, no worries. If you don't recall, also not an issue. I'll repeat that one more time here. So in our real time, usually developers will be there. Usually our dev team members will check in the code to the repository. So basically, I'm considering a repository here as Azure Repos. So since we are learning Azure DevOps, we are going to use the Azure repository. Okay, you can use Azure Repo. Alright. So once developer check in the code to the repository, see here this is the developer job completely to check in the code to the repository. Then what is the DevOps engineer job here? DevOps engineer role here is to provide the branching strategy. So what exactly the strategy he should follow? So which branch and what exactly the branch always to be there in the environments. This is the strategy exactly as a DevOps engineer you need to provide to the development team. This definitely they will expect this one from you. They will not expect Git commands, Git conflicts, how to resolve the Git conflicts. These things they will never expect. Okay, don't worry. They are already well aware of those things. Developers already well aware of that one. At the same time, you also no need to deep dive into the Git commands. That is not your area. You don't need to worry on that. But what exactly the thing you need to think about, how exactly you need to set the Git branching policies, Git branching strategy. These two are very important for a DevOps engineer. You need to present the strategy. What are the strategy you are presenting to the team? Based on that one only your team members will act. That is the point you need to understand. We will discuss completely strategy in one session. Once you are done with this repository, what exactly the next one, team? Obviously, the build pipelines is the next phase. What exactly the build pipelines will do? So build pipelines will pull the code, right? Build pipelines will pull the code and it will build the entire repository and finally it will generate a zip format file, right? So that's a common thing, right? So zip format. Maybe I'm just telling you at this moment it is a zip as a simple terms, but next level, you will think about that particular zip will become an image, Docker image also. So the package format can be anything. That could be a zip, that could be an image, or that could be a jar file, that could be a WAR file, that can be anything, team. Okay, it's packaged format. All right. Once this particular zip been generated, then what exactly you usually will think about it? You will go for the Azure release pipeline. Here is the release pipeline. The release pipeline job here is whatever the packaged code, packaged version you generated, that particular packaged code will be pulled to the release pipeline. Okay, so that is exactly the thing will happen, team. Okay, if you notice this one, team, you know one interesting thing. This is a common process. If you go to AWS, if you go to GCP, this is a common process. So you need to remember the process. Okay, you need to remember the process, not the services. Okay, you need to remember the process. So code check into the repositories and build pipelines are pulling the code and it is just packaging that one into the zip and release pipelines are releasing. Simple thing. You know one important thing. If you recall, team, one interesting fact, we have created one virtual machine. Usually we'll create one virtual machine. We have created already one virtual machine. That virtual machine, whatever the virtual machine you created, in the portal usually we'll provision a VM, right? That's a common thing which we have seen already. How to provision a virtual machine, we know already. Once you provision a virtual machine, I told this particular process already in your previous sessions, okay? Whatever the VM you provisioned here, the same VM you need to configure under your build and release pipelines. That's the point you need to remember too. Whatever the VM you provision here, same VM you need to configure as a Azure Devops agent. That thing already we have seen. That's really good. That we already configured, and we make that particular agent also online. If you guys recall that one, we did that one. I don't know whether you guys can recall it or not, but now it is required for me. Okay, all right. So once this is done, team. Okay, once this is done, the next important thing what exactly I'm thinking here is, okay, your build and release pipelines are referring your virtual machine where the build and release pipelines corresponding tasks will be executed on the virtual machine. That's really good. Okay, finally, you have generated a zip format from here, right? So whatever the zip you generated, that particular zip will be deployed to the hosting component, right? We have seen the case, if you recall, team, in our one of our sessions, at this session, if you recall, team, I told you already how exactly this particular process works. I explained this one diagrammatically, okay, in your second class, I believe, if I'm not wrong. Okay, from service release pipeline, you are deploying that particular package to any of these hosting components. Now, I'm going to consider a hosting component, which is an app service. That's the first thing which I'm considering now, team. Okay, if you consider the app service, so here is exactly the scenario. I'm just considering one app service. Okay, app service. Let's take an app service. It's an Azure app service. So you just need to search with Azure. I think then only it will give the proper icon. Just take this one. All right. Okay, just take the Azure app service, team. Okay, that's awesome. You know one thing, team. Azure app service is one of the hosting component, okay, which you can provision from your portal. That's how exactly you provision the virtual machine. Similarly, you can provision an app service also. That's really good. Now the release pipelines will directly connecting to this particular app service. This is what exactly the connection I'm talking about. Okay, I'm talking about. Now, once you are here, team, okay, once you are here, what exactly we need to think about? So once you are here, after deploying your package into the app service, okay, your deployment is good, awesome. If you think your job is done, you're absolutely wrong, team. Okay, now your task will start. Furthermore, what exactly the things you need to take care? You know very well that you need to think about few cases where three things always in your mind. Three things: scalability, high availability, disaster recovery. The next level is the security. Okay, next level is that security. So these things should be there always in your mind whenever you're configuring any component. Okay, any component. Just think those things. By keeping those points in your mind, you need to provision, you need to configure your particular hosting component. All right. Now, this is my app service. I'm not considering any database in this particular scenario. Okay, I'll pick the database in another scenario. Don't worry. Fine. Now, once you are here, now what exactly the thing? First and foremost thing. Okay, you have deployed your application into this particular app service. That's really awesome. Point number one, I'm just bringing up a scenario, disaster recovery scenario. You know very well that this particular app service usually will sit in a Singapore region or some East Asia region or US West or UK South, whatever the region, one region definitely tells it. Now, what exactly I'm asking, what is disaster recovery scenario, team? Disaster recovery scenario is the one. For example, if something happens to the Singapore region, so meaning that, so your infrastructure will not work. Your infrastructure completely will not work. Then you should be able to get an app service from the East Asia region. So you should make your app is completely available. Whatever the application you're deploying here, that should be available from the East Asia region. So that's a point you need to understand. Okay, let me just remove this connection. Let me place these points first. Okay, so what exactly the thing I'm talking about here is, this is one app service and this is another app service which you're seeing on the screen. This app service is the primary one. I'm just giving a name for this one. This one I'm just calling as a primary, and obviously this below one is the secondary. So these points you know that already. Okay, secondary. Okay, secondary. Now the point here is, team. So now the point here is, so once you are here, okay, so the release pipeline will release the package into this particular app service. Okay. Now the release pipeline's responsibility is to deploy your package into both primary and secondary. So that's a connection which you need to make sure. Okay, all right, we'll make sure that. But the point is, team, if it is a primary, you may have some endpoint, right? Some endpoint meaning that some https dot some flipkart.com, right? Maybe the secondary app service will give another endpoint, https://flipkart1.com. Hey, this is giving one domain, this is giving another domain. But which domain I need to give it to the end user? So that's the first problem usually you will get. Here I'm considering the end user here. Oh, here is the end user, okay? So now the point is end user means public, okay? What exactly the public URL? Public URL. This app service is giving one URL. This app service is giving another URL. See, since these two are Azure managed components, since these two are Azure managed, they are giving the domain name for free. Whatever the name you're trying, they are giving the domain name for free. But point you need to understand, whatever the domain name they are providing, the domain name will be https://primary.azurewebsites.net. You got my point, team. They are promoting their domain, not your brand. You should understand this one, okay? Azure is giving for free. Don't think like okay, Azure is giving for free, but they are promoting their own brand. You also need to think about it, okay? When you have your product, when you have your application where you need to tell to your public as, okay, this is mine. You need to, so what exactly the eye-catching point here? The URL is the only thing, right? For example, if you give the URL some https flipkart.com, amazon.com, itself is telling very clearly, hey, this particular thing is from Amazon, this particular thing is from Flipkart. Maybe behind, they might have used AWS cloud, or they might have used Microsoft cloud, they might have used GCP, but they are not promoting the GCP cloud and all, right? They are promoting their own brand, whatever the product they are just publishing. That's what exactly the point you need to understand. Always, whenever you try to deploy any component, any application into your app services or any hosting component, you need to check with your product owner, okay? Product owner very clearly, hey, what should be the branding URL here? Is client is expecting some URL here, or whatever Azure is providing, that should be okay. If it is internal to only company, whatever Azure is providing, that is more than enough. That is more than enough, team. But if it is an external application, meaning the public facing one, where external public is watching you, at that time definitely they will look for the branding URL, okay, something like that, right? So that is what the point now I'm coming here. So primary and the secondary, this is coming up with one endpoint, this is coming up with one endpoint. Which endpoint I need to give to the public? So the problem here is there is no entry point. This is only talking about the primary. This is only talking about the secondary. So the entry point should be friend-door, Azure friend-door. You need to think about this one. Azure friend-door. You will understand what exactly this one. Don't worry. I'm introducing a component, Azure friend-door. See, that name itself is very clearly telling you it's a friend-door where persons or applications or mobile or website, whatever it is, okay, where they can come and they can easily connect with this particular friend door. Okay, this is the entry point. Okay, now friend door is connecting to your primary, friend door is connecting to your secondary. Okay, your secondary. Now what exactly the point you should understand here? See, you should understand a simple point here. So what are the traffic you are getting, especially from the friend door team? Okay, what are the traffic you are getting from friend door? That particular traffic will be routed between primary and secondary. Now the point, what exactly the point I'm highlighting here? Okay, so for example, this primary and secondary is there, but I'm telling you it's a DR scenario. It's a DR scenario. It's not a high availability scenario, right? It's a DR scenario. DR scenario means if primary gone, then only usually I will look for this one. Point you need to understand one thing here. DR, don't always think like DR you will be always standby. Don't think like that. Don't assume such kind of lines. That depends upon the client's budget. Okay. So what exactly is standby? You know, team, for the primary and secondary, either you can keep active or active passive. What does that mean? So active means you both app services will be always running. Primary is running, secondary is running. What exactly you will do? you will just allocate some 50% traffic to only primary and 50% traffic to only secondary. So meaning that you are distributing your traffic. You are distributing your traffic between these two app services equally. That's your wish. That's your wish, because you have two app services which are running fine. All of a sudden, if primary doesn't work, meaning there's some disaster scenario, then friend door is a load balancer team. Okay, it's a load balancer. The friend door can sense the health of your primary, then immediately friend door will route the traffic only to the secondary. That is exactly the advantage with the friend door. I'm telling you, friend door is a load balancer, which is a HTTPS load balancer, where it can route the traffic at L7, layer 7, which is a HTTPS traffic team. Okay, route the traffic at the layer 7, and it can pass the traffic to the backend services. That could be anything. Today I'm talking about only app services. Maybe tomorrow these could be application gateways. Day after tomorrow these could be some other storage account. Can be anything too. But you should understand the architecture here. Okay. So what exactly the friend door is able to do? Friend door is able to route the HTTPS traffic to the backend services. That's absolutely awesome. That is what exactly we require. Alright. Some cases, primary and secondary mode would be active and passive also. When you consider about active and passive means, so only active means only primary is working, but the passive means secondary will not work. In that case, the traffic percentage should be 100% on the top and 0 on the secondary, and 0% on the secondary. Then when disaster comes, automatically primary will not work. In this particular scenario, is your responsibility to make the bottom as 100, because you intentionally configure that is 100, this is 0, right? You intentionally configure. When you configured intentionally, above 1 should be there 100%, below 1 is there for 0. This is what your plan. This is what your DR plan, disaster recovery plan. So when disaster really hit your primary, then obviously you will fall under secondary. How exactly? This particular falling, either I told you one point already, team. So when disaster really happens, Azure will come to you. Okay, Azure will automatically fail over to the secondary sites if you already configure. If you see any delay over there, you can still go there and you can configure simply 100 here and just keep this one as a 0. That's all. And 0. So 100% traffic will go to secondary. That's all, team. That's all. Now the point here is, okay, you're telling disaster coming to the Singapore region. Then what happens to the friend door? Friend door is also a service, right? So is there any problem for the friend door? Will there be any issue for the friend door? The friend door is a global component. Global component means it is not depend upon your region. Okay, it will not depend upon the region. So point here is, what of the friend door you are creating? It's a most highly available component. So meaning that this particular component can able to route the traffic on the regional level. Meaning that, so this can route the traffic between Singapore and Hong Kong. That capability is there for the friend door because it's a global component. You need to understand this. Okay. And also, what are the architectures you are going to see in future, especially from this training? Those architectures, entry point, most probably I'll keep a friend door because that is the one of the most useful component in your architecture in real time. Okay. So based upon that particular friend door only, that particular primary and the secondary will be defined. So you need to keep this point in your mind. I'm bringing the friend door in our initial classes itself so that you will get a very good idea on this particular component. Alright, team. So once you are here, okay, let me ask one question. I told you already the person should come only from here, in this way. He should come here, and whatever the traffic it is receiving, it will forward the traffic to the primary and secondary. If the same person try to hit this particular primary directly, if he is able to hit the primary directly, will your application will work or not? Will application work or not? That is the point exactly we should understand a bit. Okay, that depends, team. Point number 1. Whatever the deployment you are making to these app services, whether your app service is a public component. If it is a public component, what you can do? You cannot do anything. If it is a public component, this person directly can hit your app service. But still you can restrict this particular person, not only this particular person, a man in the middle. That particular person should be, who could be anything, could be a hacker also. That particular person, definitely you can block him. You know how? This particular app service is there, right? You just come to the app service. Here in the app service, you can whitelist your friend door service. You can whitelist. If you whitelist the friend door, it will allow only traffic from friend door. It will not allow these kind of traffics. It will not allow them, okay? It will not allow this kind of traffic, definitely. So that is the point exactly I'm trying to highlight. So this is also one of the security thing which you need to consider in this particular architecture. You should understand that one also. Okay, so for good. Now we understand especially on how exactly these particular app services are being defined, how exactly we are planning to route the traffic between these two app services. Okay, all right. Fine. The next important thing is we need to make the deployment to the primary and the secondary at the same time, right? Here you are seeing the release pipelines, right? So you need to create the deployment for these two app services. So the first one is the primary one. Okay, that one you need to make sure. So that's the first thing, team. And the second one is the secondary one, right? So this one also you need to make sure. So the deployment to the primary and secondary, which you need to do specially from your release pipeline. So in the release pipeline, you need two stages. One stage is for primary, another stage is for secondary. This is what the thing exactly you need to understand. Okay, you need to understand. Hope you understand this particular discussion. Thank you for the session. See you in the next part.